His death came as a huge surprise to me. My father, the charmer he is, always says, the only surprise is how long he lasted. My brother had issues with depression and addiction, and he'd been in and out of rehab since high school, but he'd never attempted something like this before. What he had done is fall off the wagon over and over again. Maybe I'm an idiot for putting this kind of hope into an addict, but this time felt different. He'd been sober for a few months, his longest run ever. Gotten a job. He was doing really well from what I could tell. He even started to talk about becoming a writer. I'd never known him to have a dream, so this was really big for me. What I'm trying to say is he didn't seem like someone who was planning to kill himself. He seemed like he was really determined to stay sober this time. I got my hands on his journal a few days ago. I knew he'd been keeping one since he got out of rehab, and I was really hoping there'd be some kind of clue as to what happened. Honestly, I have no idea what to make of its contents. If taken at face value, it looks like he might have had some kind of psychotic break or something like that. But like I said, he seemed to be in a relatively good place. If he was going to snap, I feel like it would have happened when things were really bad for him, which they were for years. They spoke to him a few times before it happened, and he seemed pretty lucid, like he didn't say anything that raised any red flags or hinted that he might be hallucinating. Even his writing reads like it always did if you ignore the subject matter. I've been up for days, poring over his journal, trying to make heads or tails of what he was going through. I hit a wall, honestly. It's just that it isn't heading up. I'm hoping that stepping away from it for a couple of days will give me a fresh perspective. I'm going to post his journal entries here in the meantime. Not quite sure what I'm hoping for, but it feels wrong to sit around and do nothing. I think it's important to mention that there was literally hundreds of entries in his journal. I'm only posting the ones I think are relevant to his breakdown. Entry 1. April 12th, 2019. I posted my first story on Reddit today. Didn't get much attention, so I ended up taking it down. One of the few people who did see it DM'd me. He, I assume, said he liked the way I wrote and that he needed some authors to beta test a program that he and his team had been working on. He asked if I was interested. I wasn't, but I was. I'm not a accepting offers from internet strangers kind of guy, but people aren't exactly scrambling to hire me right now. Most employers aren't interested in a guy that got caught stealing painkillers from the pharmacy he worked at. Shocker, I know. Well, I waited a few minutes to see if someone with a job offer was going to knock down my door at the last second. And when that didn't happen, I accepted the Reddit guy's offer. We exchanged emails, he sent me a bunch of crap to sign, including a non-disclosure agreement. Not sure who he thought I'd be telling. Beta testing software isn't exactly something that you shout from the rooftops. Well, I'm expecting to spend at least 8 hours a day during the week working on the program. God, I can already feel my back cramping. Whatever, it pays well enough. It's not like I'm doing anything better, so I start tomorrow. Time I thought about drinking today, 25. Times I thought about pills today, 18. Cigarettes smoked, 6. Entry 2, April 11th, 2019. Holy hell. Okay, it took me 2 hours. 2 hours to get through the instruction section of the program. I read all sorts of stuff about character types and what I can and cannot do with the program. There's a lot of mention of something called the Storyscape, but I'm still not entirely sure on what that is. I didn't ask what kind of program it was, but I figured I didn't need to. There aren't many programs one would need writers to test. To the best of my knowledge, it's a collaborative life simulator, according to instructions, which, by the way, took me 2 hours to read. I know I said it already, but I'm still pissed about it. These tech nerds really blow my mind. They can create a whole collaborative whatever, but a simple summary is completely outside the realm of possibility. I'll be responsible for watching over a character, following their day-to-day life and intervening in subtle ways to make stuff happen. What exactly that stuff is will be defined by assignments given to me by the program. See? That wasn't so hard, was it? Anyway, I guess that makes some kind of video game. Cool. I like video games. I've managed to break the instructions down into a few important bullets. I'm going to write them down here so I don't have to slog through the crap again if I forget something. An author must complete every assignment they're given. Failure to do so will result in termination of their contract. There are 2 types of characters, complex and throwaway. Once a character is created, it cannot be deleted. It exists within the storyscape and will perform actions until its death. An author can create throwaway characters to perform a specific task. Complex characters cannot be created by an author. Only an admin can create complex characters. Complex characters have free will. Their decisions and subsequent actions are their own. Hmm. Free will. I didn't make that up. That was actually in the instructions. Long-winded and melodramatic. Finally clicked out of the instructions and was greeted with an overhead view of this boy's bedroom. I really didn't expect the graphics to be so good. I wasn't expecting graphics, honestly. It reminded me a bit of that game, The Sims, but it was way less cartoony. Put together this digital world. It was a storyscape that they were talking about. I moused over the kid, and a little box popped up over his head. Jared Redford, 8, complex. I did the tutorial, which basically just walked me through Jared's first day of grade school. It played through kind of like a movie, the important scenes getting screen time and everything else being skipped over. How the program decides what is and isn't important is beyond me. It all seems pretty mundane so far. Supposedly there's an option to play through the entire day, but honestly, who has time for that? The first assignment I got was make new friends. The tutorial showed me all my options for accomplishing that. Can't control Jared directly, but I can do a whole bunch of other things like make thoughts pop into his head, control the intensity of specific emotions, give him gut feelings, cause little muscle spasms, a bunch of other things. Seems like the whole point of giving the character free will was to have me bend it. Why not just let me control the character and be done with it? A whole day took me around 10 minutes to complete. I made a throwaway fifth grader, had him knock Jared's books out of his hands in the hallway. He ended up making friends with the two kids that helped him pick everything up. Man, wish someone came to my rescue like that when I was a kid. Maybe then I wouldn't have ended up as a recovering addict babysitting a digital 8-year-old. Times I thought about drinking today, 22. Times I thought about pills today, 29. Cigarettes smoked, 9. Entry 3, May 4th, 2019. The attention the developers pay to detail is impressive. It's been around 3 weeks real time since I started using the program, which translates to a little less than 3 years within the storyscape. Mikey and Jackson, the two kids who came to Jared's rescue on the first day of 3rd grade, have become his best friends in the entire world. The three of them are completely inseparable, which is why Jared was devastated when Jackson's parents started talking about moving to another town. It crushed him, understandably. Yes, in theory, they could still see each other, but they'd be at the mercy of their parents, who probably wouldn't want to make the 30 or something minute drive all that often. Watching Jared try to pretend like everything was okay, even though he wanted to cry all the time, really hit home for me. He wasn't a freak or anything like that, but he did have a difficult time connecting with people. He's in his head a lot. Makes him appear awkward on the surface. Jackson was one of the few people who took the time to get to know Jared, to see him lose that. He deserves better. That's all I'm saying. I waited to see if the assignment would come in for me to stop Jackson's parents from moving. When it didn't, I decided to go ahead and stop them anyway. I made a throwaway, stuck her in a house that looked very much like the one that Jackson's parents were going to buy. I made it her purpose in life to sell that house for significantly below market value, and had her post up flyers around the area where Jackson's mom likes to power walk. I also made a second throwaway character and had him drunk drive his car through the living room of the other house. It can never be too thorough. Long story short, it worked, and Jackson's family ended up moving right down the street from Jared. When Jared found out and that cloud that had been hanging over his head disappeared, felt like my insides unclenched at once. I hadn't even realized how tense I was. That's not the impressive part, though. When everything was said and done, I started to think about the throwaway character I created. I literally added a lot to Jared's neighborhood and built a digital house on it instantaneously, yet no one within the storyscape batted a digital eye. I watched the throwaway I made walk her dog and stuff, and it seemed like people knew who she was, despite the fact that she didn't exist until a minute ago. They waved to her, said good morning, all that normal neighborly stuff. The program has this timeline feature where you can go back and look at any event that happened from the day you booted up the program for the first time. It showed that the house was always there. The woman had always lived in it. I'm not exactly an expert on this kind of stuff, but it seems like the program retroactively generated a whole life to throwaway. Sort of makes sense when you think about it. When I'm in public, I often think about the fact that every single person I pass on the street is living their own lives. They might be throwaways in my story, but in theirs, they're the main character. They have their own history, their own social security number, family, home, etc. If you were suddenly to take an interest in their lives and dig deep enough, you'll find all those things. It's like a trail of breadcrumbs that shows this person existed long before they flashed across your field of vision. If someone in the storyscape decided to play detective and couldn't find those breadcrumbs, that might raise more than a few red flags. I know that sounds crazy, but you wouldn't even believe how advanced this AI is. I sometimes forget that people I'm watching aren't real. The rules did say that complex characters have free will. Maybe. Maybe that means they're capable of a higher level of thinking as well. Maybe it would be possible for them to figure